Hello and welcome to the program, The Advocates. On The Advocates this week, we shall be deliberating as usual on issues of anti-corruption and accountability in governance. My name is Jack Vincent Fidelis, and I'm your host. With me in the studio to discuss these issues, I have Dr. Abubakar Othman, a senior lecturer with the Department of English Language, University of Maiduguri. Doctor, you are welcome.
Thank you, John.
In the studio, we have members of the audience who will be interacting with us in the course of the program and giving us their own contribution. In the meantime, I will be discussing with Dr. Othman. And first and foremost, Doctor, I want to start by saying this. You see, China is one country that is known to have developed. At some point in their history, the Chinese people had it really rough. But today, China is taking over the world in all spheres. Having said that, the reason they are doing well is because of their hard stance on corruption. Because of their very, very hard stance on corruption. How can Nigeria do the same to attain the same results?
Well, Jack, the issue of China and Nigeria, as far as corruption is concerned, is not a comparative issue. Perhaps relative, but not comparative.
Okay.
We need to understand the concept of corruption itself. China may have developed or is developing very fast because it has zero tolerance for corruption. But corruption at what level? There may be no internal corruption in China, but China is exporting corruption. That's another angle we need to look at. You know the problem associated with the market economy, Chinese products. In fact, of recent, I do see on the social media that China is even manufacturing, plastic fish, plastic rice. Go around Maiduguri, go to areas like Gwange, go to areas like Mairi. You find streets laid by Chinese that are no longer there, right? So in that sense, we cannot say China has zero tolerance for corruption, right? But maybe it has its own concept of corruption. But having said that, for Nigeria to develop at the rate at which China is developing, we need to go just beyond corruption. It is an attitudinal issue. Attitudinal in the sense that you have to, first of all, identify yourself with the country. You have to say, this is my country, and I don't have any other country but Nigeria. I'm not referring to the cliche, sloganeering of the past leaders and all this. In real terms, in real sense, you must say this and live by it. Secondly, if you look at China, China is a country made up of one people. Nigeria is a country made up of many people. People in the plural. When I say people, it's not demographic, all right? I'm referring to people as identities. A Chinese is a Chinese. He has a unique identity. Wherever he goes, he's a Chinese. Therefore, he has no hiding place, right? So he has to protect his own environment. He has no option but to identify with his own country. Nigeria, and indeed every other nation in sub-Saharan Africa, as if we live in a porous environment. A Nigerian can easily be a Ghanaian. A Nigerian can easily be a Cameroonian. A Nigerian can fit anywhere, on the continent. Perhaps because of this, they don't feel this nostalgic primordial attachment to their country, Nigeria, as their only country, simply because they can easily walk across. From Maiduguri here, how many hours do you need to get to Ghana by air? Maximum 2 hours. From here to Lagos is 1 hour. From Lagos to Ghana is 30 minutes, at most 40 minutes. You are in another country. Why not? Because of immigration, checking here and there, you will just walk in like any other Ghanaian. So we always feel that as if we have another country, and it is a wrong idea. It's a wrong mindset. So first of all, we need to identify ourselves with this fact, that as Nigerians, we don't have any other country but this Nigeria.
All right. All right. I understand that very, very much. And then now, having said that, sir, let's now bring ourselves to the electorate. Let's bring the electorate into the discussion now. You know, this whole thing is about how governance can positively affect the population, the masses. These same masses, how can they bring about good leaders? How can the influence of the masses bring about good leaders in society? It's one issue that we really should look into. I would like to get your contribution on that note, sir.
Well, if you are talking about leadership and how to get good leadership,
I mean, how the masses can be
Yes.
responsible for the leaders that they have.
yeah, well, let us be specific. When you say the masses, it's another way of running away from the specific people, all right? If the masses, you mean
Electorate,
the rule,
the
all right?
people
Yes,
voting.
Yeah, even among the masses, we have categories. We have those who can actually influence policies and decisions, and there are those who are handicapped and cannot do anything. What can you do with a rural man in the village?
I make reference to these people who are the downtrodden.
Yeah, that is it. In fact, the downtrodden are more or less in the villages, right? Who have no access to television, who may not be listening to what we are saying, you know, who are not, exposed to all the niceties we talk about. These people, as long as you leave them in peace, living their rural, rustic life, they are not even aware there is government. This group of masses cannot change government. So we need to identify specific segment of this group, we call masses, who really have a bargaining power and can influence decisions and change things.
Who are these people who have that influence?
So these people now will be looking at perhaps our enlightened youth, all right? We will be looking at, when I say the elite again, one has to be very careful, all right? I'm looking at an aspect of the elite, all right? The elite, the youth, the students, all right? Those, I don't want to use the term, you know, in the middle cadre, all right? But classes of the masses that are identified as the youth, as students, you know, as slightly enlightened, you know, who can now form pressure groups, you know, movement here and there. Yes, these people can bring about, you know, changes in government by identifying where the problem lies first of all. This one cannot be done by legislation, because the legislation is also part of the problem. It cannot be done, you know, by the judiciary. The judiciary is also part of the problem. So this group that I have mentioned out there, if they can have a rallying point where they can exchange ideas and conscientize each other, cross-fertilize ideas for the purpose of conscientization, you know, share their own problems, share their own visions, you know, and come out en masse. You know, I'm sure your mind is going towards the Arab Springs, the blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's part of it, all right? It's part of it. So if we can have this kind of consistent, you know, and persistent conscientization of some segments of the so-called masses, they can bring up about change in government.
All right, very good. Viewer, in case you are just joining us, the program is The Advocates, a program sponsored by the MacArthur Foundation and CTAD. I have with me members of the audience. It's at this point that I want to go over to them to see if they have a contribution to make.
My name is Musa Agwari. Sir, my question to you is that the young people being exploited during the electioneering process, and that's a negative narrative to the youth, how can they get involved in the fight against corruption?
I don't know, are they exploited or they gave themselves up, you know, for exploitation? Right? It's all part of the conscientization, you know. What does a youth stand to gain by coming out or going out there in the street, just maybe for a bag of rice, or maybe for just 5,000, 10,000, or giving to in bulk? Oh, take this 100,000 naira. Please go and spread this. What do you stand to gain by this meager amount? But perhaps to him it's not meager. To you and I, it may be meager, but to him it is not meager. Why? Because he needs this money. Why? He needs the money because, one, the government cannot allow him to go to school unless he pays his school fees. Government cannot allow him to go to the hospital, and get treated and get drugs without paying for it. Virtually, you pay for everything in this country. To become a student, to graduate as a student, to get a job and all this. When you get into the office, what do you expect such a youth to do? He will be looking back, how did I get here? The road was not rosy. And you expect him to play, a rosy game for you? There's a problem here. So it's difficult to get our youth away from this bait unless we mount a vigorous, consistent campaign for the purpose of conscientization of the youth and change of the mindset. One. Secondly, the government is not sacrosanct, for goodness sake. Government is not sacrosanct. We can always force government to account for its deeds. Accordingly, we can also force government to do what it is supposed to do. Why, for goodness sake, why should a student take what is happening now? For a student to write even his JAMB, even to write his name, he has to pay. For you to open to see what you have to pay. You have to do virtually everything even before you have started writing the exam. You will write the exam. For you to get your result, you have to pay for it. You pay the university, you pay JAMB, you pay ICT, you pay everybody, even my God. At everywhere you have to pay to download your result. And when you get this result again, you have to pay to be at every point. Why? If we can tell it, look, as youths, we are entitled to all this. Technology is brought to us to make things easy, not difficult. Why is it easier for us in those days to simply write our WASC in the 70s, without paying for anything? And now we have to, because there's technology, they say you go and do it on the internet, and you have to pay for everything. Even the space you are going to sit, to log in, you have to pay. What is the problem?
Well, sir, thank you very much. Thank you very much about that. I want to point out another issue. You see, in normative climes, in places where things work, okay, for very small things we may consider very small issues here, they demonstrate, they carry placards, they brandish placards here and there demonstrating. That culture of having to demonstrate and fight against corruption doesn't seem to be entrenched in this part of the world.
You see, in those climes that you refer to, no matter how bad their leaders are, they have conscience. You can cite examples where they went out in the street, demonstrated, and really government backed down.
Yes.
In this country.
Why can't it happen here?
It can't happen here because apart from the youth themselves, or generally let's say the oppressed, all right, lacking the willpower to resist or withstand pressure, the government is a fascist government.
What government?
The government of the country.
Okay.
I'm not being specific about any government. The system of governance here, or the law, all right? Once such things happen, they will bring the full force of the law, the full weight, of the military, the police, the air force, the ground force, the navy, and everything to crush just a handful. So conscience is lacking. You deal with people who have conscience, who have value for life, who will respect the sanctity of life, you can deal with such people. But where all these things don't matter, and as you can see, they really don't matter with our leaders. If you see the behavior of your lawmakers, you know that these things don't matter. So if you know that the person you are dealing with has no conscience, has no moral clout, to say, oh, yeah, this is too much, this is too bad, So if you have such a people, there's no way you can go out in the street and then start demonstrating, making noise here and there. Before you come back home, you find that the door to your house is locked. Your parents are missing. You have compounded your situation. You are aware of all this. And there's no welfare set aside to take care of this. So I will not say, look, we will go out in the street and shout and demonstrate. Yes, we can, but it will come to naught. The people we are dealing with lack conscience. So the only thing perhaps they will understand is brutality.
All right, sir. If these things are not in place, I'm wondering if these things are not in place. These are things that people put in place in other parts of the world, and it works for them. Here, it is not working like that for us. How can the fight against anti-corruption and accountability in governance be won? Are we dealing with a hopeless situation? How can it be won?
We are not dealing with a hopeless situation, and it can be won. Once in a while, God in his mercy will create somebody who will try to approximate what decent leadership is. When we have such a situation, we exploit the situation and change the system. I will say, without sounding partisan, political, that we seem to have a similar situation right now. We have some leeways here. If we are really concerned about changing the society, this is the right time to change the society. Will they fight against corruption? For the first time, a government is coming out locally and internationally to say that they are against corruption. So what do? We take advantage of that. We see instances of corruption. Excuse me, they have introduced the whistleblower system. Even the whistleblowing system is being infiltrated now, where you find rascals, crooks, coming in as whistleblowers, giving wrong information so that you go and attack wrong people, and you end up with court cases. We take note of this. Who are these people? We deal with them. Now, okay, zero corruption. Who are the people tolerating corruption? You start right from the National Assembly. That is the bastion of corruption. You start from there, These members of the National Assemblies are coming from your various units, your various wards, from your various local government states, and constituencies. You know them, all right? So check around. You don't just follow the money, you also follow the legislator, Yes, Mr. Man, you are my representative. How did you come about this? We have to start asking questions. We ask questions. I think it's happening. I saw somewhere on the social media, post on the social media, I think around Bauchi State also, around, a legislator went home and escaped by the whiskers. He will have been lynched. You can see his jeep being damaged, torn here and there. He escaped by the whiskers. I saw another one. He went for a rally in his own home state. I think somewhere around Lokoja, Kwara area, They could not even allow him to talk. He couldn't even climb the podium. They had to smuggle him out. Gradually, people are becoming aware. They are doing this because they have a government that says no corruption. So the law cannot come on you and deal with you. If they had done this some few years back, before they leave the area, some arrests will have been made. Some people have been in jail by now, right? So when we have an opening like this, we exploit the opening. Who are the people fighting? We look at the anti-graft agencies, the EFCC, the ICPC, right? I can talk confidently about the ICPC, about the EFCC. I haven't served there as a chief of staff. I know what is going on there. The EFCC is ready to work, but the judiciary is the stumbling block. Unless you have an efficient judiciary, all right, where judges are not sacrosanct, where lawyers are not jobless, just sitting there in the offices waiting for a criminal to come and hire them to go and defend them in court. When you have a judiciary that is up and alive, with sense of moral rectitude, we can fight corruption easily. But as it is now, you can't fight corruption. No matter how, conscientious and efficient EFCC is. I don't know how much time we have on this program. We'll have given you the way the EFCC works. If you know the way EFCC works, they work perfectly. They don't allow any loopholes. But after doing all their due diligence, all the investigation, by the time they go to the court, you find maybe EFCC can afford to hire only one senior advocate, all right, to be assisted by a team of lawyers from the legal department of the EFCC to file in a case in court. The person you are taken to court may not even appear there. He will send 10 senior advocates.
In his defense?
10 senior advocates going to defend a criminal against the nation, against the state. That is the highest sense of moral irresponsibility of the judiciary.
We've seen cases where the EFCC are defeated in these cases.
In virtually in most cases. 70% of the cases always turn up not working. The issue is they are not defeated per se. They are frustrated and delayed. What happens is this: if I take you to court, if EFCC takes somebody to court, the first thing this group of so-called senior advocates will do is to start questioning the jurisdiction, right from the jurisdiction. You argued and argued over and over and over. By the time you defeat them on that, they will now appeal. And they will keep appealing to the appellate court. By the time you defeat them, when they come back to listen, to hear the substantive case, they will bring in another issue again. So by the time you go through all this process and you are back, 4, 5, 6 months, gone. 1 year is gone. So now the court is ready to hear your case. You are calling in witnesses. Oh, witness A, B, C is missing. Or this one is dead. One is bought off. All this on the part of the EFCC, they are facing this frustration. Meanwhile, because the law is, they say it's an AS, A-S-S, Abi. I look at it as an A-R-S-E. It's an AS. Anything can go into that useless hole. So there are places you can exploit. So they manipulate the law so that they frustrate whoever. So unless the judicial system is changed, and one way I will suggest that we should change the judicial system, especially in corruption cases, is to rely on the jury and not on the jurist. Cases should be determined by the jury and not by a cabal headed by a jurist. Because you can always negotiate with them, but you cannot negotiate with the jury. The jury is made up of eminent, highly responsible, knowledgeable Nigerians. Among them, of course, you find lawyers. But it is a group of distinguished Nigerians, not a clique or a cabal. If we can rely on the jury for determining court cases, one, it will help this way. Two, secondly, all right, maybe that will take us to China. China had a stiffer law, all right, on corruption. In fact, the ultimate penalty, which is death. If corrupt people should be subjected to death penalty, some may have a rethink. Although they will tell you, a Nigerian will say, oh, kill me and leave my money. All right? But it's because he has not seen the gun or the rope. Okay? If we can introduce death penalty for the corrupt people, they will say, oh, human rights, what the hell is human rights talking about when somebody is not behaving like a human being? A man who can steal billions, even trillions of naira, the amount of money that he will never finish in his life, his family will never finish, in fact, the whole of his generation will never finish that in their own life. One man will steal this money and sit on the money. You call that person a human being?
Thank you.
He's an animal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Othman. It's really nice to know you had a stint with the EFCC, making you the right person to be here right now. Having said that, you see, from when democracy started in 1999 up till today, we've not had high-profile cases of people going to jail. If I mention on the tip of my finger, I may end up having 5 or 4. And if these things are not in place, how can anti-corruption and accountability in governance be entrenched in the polity? That is the bottom line. But I want you to respond to that in maybe 30 seconds because of time.
The business of anti-corruption agencies, especially EFCC and ICPC, is to investigate and charge to court. Prosecution is left with the judiciary. And I have said it, exhaustively, that the judiciary is not ready to fight corruption. They are not ready to fight because to them corruption is a gold mine. It's a powerhouse where they live fat on it. But most importantly, even the very way we train our lawyers is wrong. Go to the universities and see the curriculum for the Faculty of Law. See, there is no sense of patriotism there. There is no nationalism there. Look at the courses they teach them. We will not find the components that will lead them to a sense of national consciousness, to patriotism. How can you build a virile judiciary with people who have not been taught to love their country?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful contribution. Well, viewer, that is the much we can take on the program, The Advocate. It's at this point that I want to say I thank you very much for staying tuned, and I thank our guest, Dr. Abubakar Uthman, for being here.
A pleasure.
We appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
And to members of the audience, thank you very much. We hope subsequently we can have you here again.
Thank you very much.
If you've had a wonderful time listening to The Advocate this week, keep a date with us, same time, same station, next week. Thank you. Same time.